Welcome to the Intimacy Lab. I'm Michelle Renee, an intimacy guide, surrogate partner, and professional cuddler. We're here to talk about intimacy in a much broader view than what you probably think. Most people think about intimacy as sex. We're going to break that apart here. Welcome to the lab. Welcome back to the Intimacy Lab. I'm excited today to be joined by somebody I met before I was doing any of this work that I do right now. Like back in my story of how did Michelle get to where she is today, it started with, of course, Betty Dotson I talked about on a different podcast. But then it was like, go to Sex Geek Summer Camp and you'll find someone doing the work that you want to do. And that didn't really happen for me. But I met some really great people that keep showing up in my life on a somewhat regular basis. And I will say that Michael, who is joining me today, doesn't show up very often. But when you do, it's kind of cool. So I think I've run into you twice since camp. Like one was at Catalyst Con and then one at ASAC. And You were so fun to sign on to doing these We're Not Really Stranger cards together. So Michael, will you introduce yourself? I don't know how to pronounce your last name, or I would have said it.
Gotcha. I'm Michael Guichet, French last name. I'm a sex therapist in California, specifically in Monterey County. I'm a father. I'm married. I'm polyamorous. I have a kid. Yeah, those are pretty much some of the stuff I'm up to. And I'm a teletherapist. This is my office. This is where I'm tuning in from. It's been like all the fun times we've bumped into each other, but just like being in the community, like having a great spot.
Yeah, I think that was the Sex Geek Summer Camp. If you're a sex educator of any sort, like you work in that field, what a great place to really learn a whole lot about how to run a practice for yourself. But also like the people I have met there have carried forward, and I only went the 1 year in 2015. I know a lot of you go back every year, but I have hung on to a good group of people from that space. So like super cool. Thanks for being part of that group. And it's always good to see a friendly face, like a familiar face in a herd of people that you don't know. And it's like, wait, I know you. I will connect myself to you and you shall be my anchor in a space that I don't know enough people in. And that's kind of what ASEC felt like in some ways. Although I'm happy to say I knew quite a few people there, but it was good to connect with you. And I remember getting a message from you like out of nowhere and you're like, Paul's pretty great. And I was like, this is so random. Like, thanks. Like, I appreciate the words of assurance that my husband, who is running around this sex therapy conference, is like doing well by me, like showing up and not, you always wonder how your partner's going to mix in with your people.
Well, I know. I was answering that question that you hadn't asked. In that way, yeah. It might be my own projection of like that. Like we kind of like worry about who are when they're sort of loose in the world, and are they okay? Are they doing fine? When you're like, I'm attending a professional conference and I have to be at like a whole bunch of things, but they're in attendance too.
And I kept getting messages from people that are like, "Oh, I'm hanging out with your husband," or he would message me and tell me that he was off gallivanting with like colleagues from like therapists from San Diego that I've never introduced him to. And I'm just like, cool. Have a good time. I hope you have fun. Like, this is why you came to San Francisco with me. So,
that was my fault. That was my fault. I was in that group. I grabbed him.
Oh, you were?
Hey, we're going somewhere. And he's like, sure.
He'd be like, Yoni Elkin offered to take me around town tomorrow. And I'm like, cool, go hang out with Yoni. Yoni's awesome, So yeah, it's fun to have that crossover. Okay, we're going to play We're Not Really Strangers, the card game that I have been doing a lot on this very new podcast. There was a story I told you I would tell you when we got on the call. And what was it about? Now
I said that I have a date deck that I put in my jacket for when I'm out and about with my people. And it could be friends, it could be anything, but like you just kind of pull it out and slap down the card and it just starts a conversation.
Yes. So what I was going to share is that I had a client, and I shared this on one of the previous episodes, but I had a client that we would only see each other once a month. And so we would have long sessions. And part of what he really liked to do at the beginning of the session was to do these kinds of cards, because it was like he wanted to have a little bit more depth of relating, but it wasn't natural for him just to kind of open up and talk about something that's a little deeper. And so he would also collect these different decks of cards, and I would show up and I'd have my decks with me. And then he'd be like, oh, but I bought this new dating deck. Can we try that deck? And I'm like, yeah, let's do that. So I really love this stuff. It's a fun jumping off point. And like I've said, I feel like a million times, I use these at my wedding reception on all the tables to help people like have a deeper conversation. So when you said off camera that some people answer them, everybody answers them to the depth of what they want to answer them. Like there's no forced, you have to go really deep. What I found at my wedding reception was that people were over-reading the question, like reading into it more than what it was asking. Like instead of it saying, it said, is there a feeling you miss feeling? They read it as, what feeling do you miss feeling? And so they started to really expound on that, which really took them into a lot of emotion. And there was a lot of tears at my wedding reception, and probably needed a little like team to come in and help people process their feelings. But, you know, it had Michelle written all over it. So it was
just perfect.
I thought it was great.
I've been like similar in that I was out with with both sets of my parents-in-law and my parents, and the deck came out, and then my mother-in-law grabbed a card, like, what do you appreciate about it? And then she went around the whole table like saying what she appreciated, and she's just bawling by the end of it in the nicest way. So it just inspires people to bring something out, because there aren't the individuals who are ready to like share, and there are people who need questions to start feeling safe in the space.
Yeah, I just think it's such a gift, and it also is something that I think we all need to be mindful that there are people that are just not interested or ready to go down this, and that's okay too. You know, you get to
there's a vulnerability in public, vulnerability with strangers. It's bold to even want to step into that.
So I will give you the option to veto any of these cards if you're like, I'm opting out. What I like about Esther Perel's deck is in her rules. The way that game can be played, I think she gives multiple options. One of them was like you would have multiple cards, and let's assume you're playing this with 3 people, not 2 people, or 3 or more people. You would each take one card let's say it was my turn to answer a question. Everybody would put forward a card that they wanted you to answer, but you would also put forward a card that you were willing to answer, right? And you shuffle those all up. Nobody knows if you picked your own card.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It doesn't work so well with 2 people because you know whether they picked your card or not. But I liked the consent aspect of that, of like you get to actually have some control about what you're answering. But I think in a lot of these cards, we get to control how deep we want to go with our answers, right?
No, absolutely. Yeah.
I pulled one out.
Are you ready? I just want to like highlight that, like when I offer these to clients, I often suggest like, hey, try to stay in like a constructive place, not like be critical or like if it says like, hey, what am I doing wrong in our relationship? Like we'll freaking go places. But go right ahead.
Yeah, I just picked one, and I'm like, it's not as good for like over in our space that we're in here. Here's one. I know my anxiety is setting in when.
Oh, I know when my anxiety is setting in when I'm a little scattered. Usually my anxiety comes from a place of like too many things in my brain, too many things on the list. And so I might be jumping around and like doing like 5% of something instead of just finishing it, and just like procrastinating somewhere else and zipping around. So it is like when I can't sort of stay on topic, stay and finish something, like complete something to get it off the list. That's when I really know that is kind of bubbling up in me.
For me, it's similar, but specifically, I will have a hard time like finding words. Like I can't pull the right word up in my brain.
Oh yeah.
Like it's like I get lost a little bit somewhere in the going from my brain to my mouth, or like I know what I want to say, but I can't grab that word, and I'll just find myself. I do it on here a lot. I'll say like, well, you'll find that in the show notes, because I can't seem to pull it up right now. Like it's like everything kind of shuts down, but I feel like it's a similar kind of response. It's a focus issue or something like that.
I get you. Yeah, like when I know that feeling too. Is the like fight or flight's going, and you're just like searching your brain, like going through all the files. Like, where is that word?
Yeah, I'm
Trying
like,
try to
it's a
find a synonym.
yeah, I'm like, am I losing it? Like, is this how it starts? Like, is this an early stage, memory problem, or is this
Oh,
just stress, or what like it's something I think as I get older I'll probably question more, but yeah. Um what or who do you need to set a healthy boundary with, and explain?
um, I guess I think I come from a lot of privilege, male and whiteness and all those kind of places that I don't need much. Like I guess I just need someone who's listening. Like at the most, because I feel like like the space I'm in and how the world rewards me. Like it's very easy to set a boundary. I don't find that too difficult. As
You
I think I want to say that.
Do you notice if do you have like a clear way to know when you need to set a boundary? Like, have you figured out, like, oh, like for me, I get really angry and I'm like, why am I so angry? Oh, there's a boundary that I need to
Well, when I'm feeling like I
adjust.
can't be myself, like I'm
Mm.
editing, I'm censoring, I'm being like criticized for who I am,
Mm.
like that kind of spot when it's when oh I don't know, I can't find one in my head at the moment. Oh, you're being very spontaneous, like I can't handle that. Like oh, it's confusing. I mean, that's
Hmm.
not necessarily the solid example, but there's just the concept when I feel like this is who I am, and you're telling me to stop.
Yeah.
When appropriately, of course.
For me, I feel like I live, again, a very privileged life also, and that I live in this bubble that's so respectful and consent oriented, and like
Mm,
I'm so fortunate. Um I feel like right now the one I'm working on is within myself in my work,
mm,
and realizing as I learn more about myself and getting more aware of my yes and my no, I can't ignore them so easily anymore. And so I am like, this is the year 2024 of I'm going to do a real full effort. I'm like everyone's holding their breath. What is Michelle going to say? To help expand people, like in surrogate partner therapy, people often call it sex surrogacy, which is really unfortunate in an old term that isn't very
mm,
representative of what we do anymore. But I'm literally wanting to take the erotic out of surrogate partner therapy for myself. Like, I don't want to have that as part of my work. And so it's not that I can't do erotic work. That container itself is such a long process that by the time we would get to the point of even being able to introduce that to the work, I've held this space with the client for so long from a place of teacher and coach and kind of parenty kind of
mhm,
space, to switch context and then come in and try to tap into my erotic self is like more than I'm a yes to anymore. And
mm,
so that's like it's weird to be like someone who talks about surrogate partner therapy so much, to then go, okay, now I need to start talking about it with a little bit more nuance, that some people will take it into the erotic part of the work and some people will not. And ultimately the work is not about the erotic part of the work, so it's okay,
mhm.
right? Like, how to message that out to society is my biggest puzzle for 2024.
All
So
right.
so that's my internal boundaries of like honoring what works for me and what doesn't work for me. So,
All right. And how
ooh,
do you do, like, what do you do to, I feel like there's an impulse in me. Like, well, like I know, like, I usually you hide like anger or something kind of comes up in
mm,
you. Like, is there, like, how do you then like revisit it? Like, instead of just the moment right now, do you think about it later? Do you, like,
no,
how
I've
do you stick
been
with it?
mulling this for so long, Michael. Like,
Mm,
this is something that the awareness in me has came up. I haven't had a lot of surrogate partner work since I've moved back to the West Coast.
mm,
So I've had a lot of time to really sit and think, what do I like about my work, and what is the harder parts of my work that make me get a sense of dread is too strong, but I get less excited about. And it is the contemplation of holding erotic energy with a client for a long period of time.
mm,
And so I've recognized that multiple times over the course of my work, and it's just been like not letting myself ignore it. gets louder and louder and louder. So like I keep revisiting it. This is like, it's not something that I make like a rash decision about, but I keep coming back to it and talking it out with colleagues and other surrogates. Some have made the same decision to change their boundaries in their work, and just it's been a process.
Okay.
And I feel like I'm in the next phase of the process. Like, did you see my presentation at ASEC?
I did attend that.
I
Yes.
purposely picked that case because we never got naked.
Mm-hmm.
Because I wanted to kind of start that momentum of like people looking at the work from a different lens, because it's always looked at as like this, oh, you have sex with clients, right? And that's like so can be part of the work, but really that's not the important part of the work. And so it's a lot of re-educating.
Yeah, actually, absolutely, because it's I mean that's what when I do point towards surrogate partner work, it is like, hey, like okay, you want to go to the sex part, but like hey, there's all of this stuff ahead of it that is part of like the concept of dating and going slow and getting comfortable and like and this concept of approaching your boundaries and like exploring them and feeling safe in those and gaining data of how you're going to act within those spaces as you like slowly open up in those and as a person to person experience.
Right. So when that isn't an option as part of the menu, what will that do to referrals? What will it do to clients' impressions of the work? Because I work with primarily cis men. The carrot is different than at that point. But as a professional, I can say, oh, but so many of these things that you're coming to the surrogate partner for, at the end goal thing, right, can be worked on in so many different layers and ways that it's like opening our minds to like, okay, you have a hard time receiving pleasure. Maybe that's your hang up, right? Well, I bet you there's so many other ways that you could practice receiving without getting naked and being in a sexual situation. Because if you can't practice it in the other spaces, I think it's probably showing up in multiple places, I guess is where I'm trying to say, is that we don't have to get naked and be in a sexual space to work on that. And for some people, it just won't be a good fit to work with me. But most of the work I do seems to be more centered around helping people regain or learn safety for the first time in their bodies because of abuse and whatnot. So for those people, I think it's enough.
I mean, I have this like zone where I'm working, and you have a little bit more zone before the sex zone of that thing. So even yeah, when I'm working with people, I'm like, okay, let's practice like what we do the dating apps and the things like that, and then you go out and collect the data. Let's come back here and let's explore like how would you feel weird? Would you? So very much in that talk there, but you get this little extra access, more access for sure to really explore that and even and have themes of giving and receiving and exploring of safety. Yeah.
Yeah, because we still have touch involved, right? Like it's there's so much there. It's just under a tighter container. So yeah. Okay. Next question. Okay. Finish the sentence. I need help with.
Oh, I mean, it's just paperwork, really, honestly.
Right.
I really need help with logistics, like honestly, in my life.
I know.
Yeah.
I learned about. Have you ever heard of the Eisenhower matrix?
I don't think I have.
Okay, so my understanding, please nobody at home quote me. My understanding is that it's this yes for questions of like you have something on your to-do list, right? Is it important? I'm going to say this and now I'm like, shit, what is it? Is it important? How soon does it need to be done? Oh, I'm blowing this. This is not.
We could always look it up.
It's one of those things. Basically, the one that I hold on to a lot. Could somebody else do this? And is this moving me towards my goals? It's something like, is this something? Yeah. Is it important? How soon does it need to be done? Can somebody else do it instead of me? And is it moving me towards my goals? I think it's something like that are the 4 quadrants. And I'm a control freak. I like to do everything myself. Like my finger is on everything. And the thought of like, can somebody else do this keeps leading me back to like, when will it be time to get a virtual assistant? So yeah, like paperwork.
Yeah, I mean, I have to like, I. It's not that I even want control. It's just I know I can do it, and then that saves me
Well, you
money.
also have notes.
I have notes, but when I got my tax man like 2 years ago, it changed my life because like, oh, just take care of this thing that'll take you 4 minutes. That is going to take me an hour to research how to like submit this whole little thing that I haven't done for a year. And this guy does it all the time, and it's like, and honestly, he's like, it's a $50 thing for something that's going to take me so long to relearn something. So that is often
So
a
in the
spot of it.
Eisenhower matrix, it was, yeah, somebody else could do this for me, and it is a better use of your time, because
Mm-hmm.
I've done all my own taxes for years, and I do know that feeling of shit. It's quarterlies. What do I have to do again? Because I don't. It could be as simple as like probably creating myself a cheat sheet, but I don't do that, so I still
Yeah,
do
you
all
gotta
my own taxes.
it is, but it's just like a layer of things. Like, oh yeah, the next layer is like I could get an accountant to take care of all those pieces that I'm still doing, kind of spot. But it's often, I think, yeah, that's the thing is like I do need help with like how to get more spaciousness in my time, like how to like outsource some of these pieces. Um, and it's really an affordability piece that I think is like holding me in. Is
Mm.
like I could pay somebody to do this, but then I'm paying somebody, and then that's income. It's all I don't know.
Yeah, although I'll say, when I was living in Baltimore, I haven't done it yet here in San Diego. But when I was living in Baltimore, we decided to get a housekeeper that would come every 2 weeks. And it felt like, oh, should we spend the money? I don't know. But boy, it was like the biggest adulting upgrade. It was so worth it.
It is. It really is.
And I just dread the process of finding someone again, because like you, I'm a sex geek, and I don't know why I feel like responsible for what people will see in my home. And like, are they going to be comfortable with a shelf full of penises and vulvas? Like, like people tell me
Mm-hmm.
don't worry about it, they've seen a lot of things.
I've seen a lot.
But I haven't done it yet. I keep talking about it, and I just, so
It's
what I could
beautiful
use.
when you find the person. Let me tell you,
It is,
and you
right?
already know it.
I know. It just like, I need help with like reestablishing all the professionals in my life in San Diego, like the housekeeper. I need a vet.
Mm.
I need a new gynecologist. I need, you know what I like. I have like some of them done, but you get like, it's kind of like as needed. And I'm finally decided that I need to get a dog sitter again, like a
Cool.
daycare, like not just like I have a dog sitter that comes, but I noticed that I work from home. This is my cuddle space behind me. And I get dread when I get a client, and this is such a sad thing. It's like, it's just a money problem, Michelle. I get a client and I go, oh, what am I going to do with my dog while they're here? Well, Paul's working from home in another area of the condo. He gets to keep the dog while I have a client, but my dog really wants to be with me. And so he is like a barker, and Paul's got to keep him like settled, and it's a lot on Paul. And so I finally said, I'm going to get a doggy daycare again, because I had that on the East Coast also.
Mm.
And so to do that, he needs his shots are due this month, and I want to start him there this month, which means I've got to get him back into the vet, which means I have to find a vet. Is there a concierge for all this? I feel like there probably
It's probably
is.
good. That's a virtual assistant. Like that's the piece
Right?
right there. Oh, yeah, because it's like this layer of all the steps to make it to the end, and
Yeah.
it's just relentless. You gotta keep doing a little at a time.
The amount of time I've thought about it, I could have just done it.
Oh, just pull the trigger on it if you can. Oh, but it's a thing.
It's so the thing. Okay, let me see what else we can come up with here. Oh, I did this one last time. Pick it up. Okay. What is your body telling you today?
It's really relaxed. I wanna go out and do stuff. Because I had an incredible New Year's Eve, and then a very relaxing Monday, and then like 8 hours of clients yesterday, and then I accomplished everything. But now today I want to like go see some people, or I'm gonna go find that. I want to go find that sort of like social energy again.
Oh,
So yeah, I'm feeling right now. Yeah.
I'm an introvert, and so just even getting back to work has like drained the shit out of me after having a couple of weeks off over the holidays. I had a client yesterday for 3.5 hours. And it was intense, mind you, enjoyably intense. Like, this client is amazing. Like, she's so great to work with. And it was emotionally a lot. And I came home and I walked in the door, and I had a meeting scheduled. Do you know Phoenix Mandel?
I know the name. Oh,
Okay.
I bumped into them. I know. I do know. I have met them at ASEC, right? They
Yeah,
were there. Yeah.
probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a call scheduled with Phoenix, and I walked in and I just I'm like, I can't. My brain is broken. I went and hid in my bedroom and watched TV and had girl dinner, which consisted of a little bit of queso and chips, some carrot sticks. This is like a progressive meal through the evening as I laid in bed and
Oh, it
watched
wasn't all
TV.
plated at once.
No, no, no. I have a tiny tummy. I had bariatric surgery a couple years ago,
Oh.
so I can't do that. So it was like, I'll have a little bit of queso and some chips. And I was like, still want something crunchy. How about some carrots? Okay, well, now I need something sweet. Okay, I have a little bit of this toffee left over from Disneyland. That's really yummy. That'll be kind of like dessert. Oh, but later then I was like, how about some dry cereal? Like, it was this weird little, like, a progressive dinner of girl dinner last night. So I don't have, I think we're getting back to the social need. Yeah, I don't have that. Like, I think
I get that. It's interesting in like the helping profession. I think I like all the people I consult with, yourself included, right in that example, is like there's so many introverts within the therapist groups, within the cuddle groups, within all the things. It's all these introverts who are like really giving of their like soul when they're working, and then
yeah.
at the same when I haven't bumped into many extroverts like myself within this space, where I'm like, oh yeah, work. Let's go to work. Okay, and now we're off work. Let's go something to something else. Let's
I know
I just spent a bunch of time with people. I want to go spend some more time with people.
people are always like, you're not an introvert. And I'm like, oh, but I am. I think people think introvert means shy. And like, I'm not shy. I just, I didn't know I was an introvert until I went to, are you familiar with Wasteland Weekend? It's like Mad Max meets Burning Man.
Well, it's awesome. I don't know.
Yeah, it's literally like a Mad Max like cosplay thing.
Oh, I saw. I remember for just like you unlocked. I saw your Facebook post about it forever ago. I saw your costumes. Yeah.
Yeah, long time ago. Yeah, I went to that for the first time a few years back, and it was there that I realized I was an introvert. I'm like, I'm over 40 years old. How have I not put these pieces together yet? But when you're camping in the desert and it's really hot, you can't go get in your tent in the middle of the day. And I couldn't leave the community shade space. And I was like, I'm losing my mind. Is this why I was such a bitch of a mother? Because I never got away from my kids. I was like this homeschool mom that couldn't even go pee by myself. Like, no wonder why I was a miserable human being for those years. And so, the more I work, the less social spoons that I have. Like, as my career has built, like before I started getting into this work, I was out doing kink events and I go to every munch, and I might be out 4 or 5 nights a week. And now I'm like, I'm lucky if I go to a social thing like once or twice a month. It's just,
not that it's like I almost hate that I hear the tone on it of like, I'm disappointed in myself. Like, why? I'm trying to embrace that.
It's a little bit of, I do go through a mourning process sometimes of like, I'm not the same person I used to be. Like, I just am not. And it's one of those, when will I go? I went through a period of like, when will I go back to like the slutty version of Michelle that I used to know, right? Like, and then I'm like, well, wait a minute. What if that's just I'm changing every day. I'm changing, and what will be next? Who knows? Maybe it will be that kind of more open person. But it's okay if it's not, because I'm just not the same person I was then. It's like this process of like reaffirming, no, Michelle, it's okay. You don't have to be, you don't, why would you want to go back? There's so many other cool things you've learned about yourself. It's just part of that process, but there's a lot of grief involved in that. And I do have a little bit of wishing I had more social spoons.
Sure.
Good catch. Also, I'm married to an extrovert, so I think it would help in some ways if I did have more of that.
Oh.
Yeah. Is your wife an extrovert also?
No, she's an introvert.
It,
She needs her reading time. She needs her quiet space. She needs to be like have no demand on her.
what about your other
From
partners?
social. Like one of them does is as energetic as I, and kind of
Okay.
runs around a bit. But the thing is, like, I have like lots of like circles, and so I'm like visiting different circles at a time. So that's kind of how I bounce around.
I had a really interesting thing at ASEC. We were looking around, and it was a correlation between like sex educators and tech people.
Mm,
So you're on the sex educator side of this. Are any of your partners tech people?
not at all.
Oh, okay, cool. I just was like, it was just an interesting notice that a lot of us are paired up with tech people. Maybe it's the insurance. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, well, my wife does. My wife's work is the insurance. She's an educator, so that's how it works out.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think it is nice to have really steady insurance in your life when you're a self-employed person.
Hmm.
You got another one in you?
Oh yeah, easily.
When is the last time you didn't ask for help but really needed it? And
Hmm.
explain.
Well, I'll have to go with a big story that I can't do it last time. But I really messed up my back. Rough was that almost a year and a half ago. Um, and during that time, as my back was like progressively getting worse because I was going to the wrong doctor about it, and they were giving me chiropractic when I actually needed PT kind of situation, and so I either needed to call off a party or do something like that, but I just kept going. I just kept going at my pace, like, oh hey, I've made these obligations, I've made these plans. I could have asked for a little bit, I could have asked for more support or pulled the plug on it, but we already had like it was a 50 person party. It was this massive thing. Um, I still went with it, and then like a week later, my back got even worse and worse and worse until it got better. But like it was about like sometimes it's about pausing and stopping and asking for help along that process. Would have been awesome because I could have paused or stopped if I could, in some ways, have like had more help. Because otherwise,
Yeah.
like like in a lot of ways, I keep I keep a lot of my like my house up. Like I'm sort of the not the primary, but I am a lot of the engine of a lot of the pieces of the lives I'm in.
Yeah.
So if I'm at a commission, the things don't happen, but then I have to let go of the things. But when the things don't happen, then it's just a cycle. So it's a whole thing.
Yeah, I understand that. I was, like I said, I was a homeschool, like stay at home mom for 17 years. So like, I totally understand when like when that major part of the system isn't functioning, what happens to the entire ecosystem is
Mm.
a lot. I struggle with asking for help. So I'm like, I'm sure I have a million examples of when, gosh, this goes back to like childhood shit, right?
Mm.
Like asking for help was not a thing. It feels like it's just such a normal thing for me that I can't actually pull up an example because
I
I
get you.
just
That's the thing.
power through like you know what I mean? Like, um, I should turn it around and be like, when is the time that you actually asked for help? And
All right. All right.
right,
Well, what's that lesson?
like I think for me, this is like kind of taking it in a much bigger life lesson kind of way, but for me, getting into mentoring, like having a mentor in my work was a huge, scary step. Like it helped me a ton in my work. I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for Brian Gibney. But it was so scary to have him know that he was going to give me feedback. Like that help was so scary because I just was so afraid of being criticized. So afraid. So in doing that with somebody who was really safe and really kind and gentle, knowing that I told him this was going to be really hard for me, so reparative. Like the idea of having people look at my work and whatnot does not phase me now. But boy, I was in tears so many times just being so afraid to have like that conversation of like, so what do you think? How did I do? To me, that's asking for help because I think my surrogate partner training was kind of shit. It was not any of the regular surrogate partner trainings that are known very well. So I'm not going to drag the place, but I will say it's not probably any of them that people would think of. So you don't have to worry about that, people out there in the world. So I needed a help. I needed a lot of help. And Brian was really good about it, but it was so scary to ask for. So scary. So that's my turnaround on that card.
What?
Yeah.
How do you feel like you're a little more resilient
Oh, yeah.
constructive or full criticism?
Absolutely. And I caught myself the other day. So I'm not diagnosed ADHD. I know you were having fun kind of looking at
Oh,
Paul when you guys met. You had some words of wisdom for me, I think, as I walked out of your parents' house or something. Like, I remember you said something like, "Oh, he's just me," like a few years ago or something
a few years
like
ago.
that.
Yeah, I did say those exact words.
Yeah, but I'm undiagnosed, but I'm pretty sure I'm somewhere there too. And
Oh, you got the vibe.
the other day, I'm neurospicy in some kind of way.
There
I
it is.
know in multiple ways for sure. And the other day, I was jumping topic to topic, and he couldn't follow me, and I broke his brain. Like, he's like, I have to go lay down. I just don't feel well. And he like goes and lays down and comes back and he goes, I realized that it was our conversation like between the car ride and then coming home, and you just were like dumping different stories at me, and I couldn't track it. And he's like, my brain just broke. And I really struggled with I can't talk to my husband anymore because I'm breaking his brain. Like, internal dialogue was like, I'm bad. And then I was like, nope, you're not, Michelle. This is just how he is processing the information. And like, it's okay. Like, we don't have this struggle on a regular basis. But I had to do a little of my own correction, but it was reading as criticism to me, even though I don't think he meant it as criticism. It was really just like wow, you jump around a lot. But then today, same thing was happening. I say it doesn't happen a lot, but here we are 2 days, not in a row. But he goes, is this what it's like talking to me? And I'm like, it is. I think I caught it from him. I think that I'm going to blame him for my jumping around as 8 years of being in relationship with him and just wash my hands of it. It's not me, it's you. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, but I'm way better at correcting the internal criticism, like what that criticism means to me, like that like it doesn't hit so hard or it doesn't last as long. Right? Like, yeah. I can correct my negative self-talk around it.
Yeah, the internal critic is so loud. To some of us, I don't think everybody has it, but the kind of place where we're ready to like tear ourselves down. Even before anyone else is.
Have you read, I don't know how much you work in, like, I know you're a sex therapist, so this might not touch you quite as directly, but there's a book called Complex PTSD From Surviving to Thriving.
I have heard of it. I've not ingested it.
Yeah, they talk about the inner critic and outer critic and how it's an emotional flashback. And so taking that kind of, oh, I noticed this critical voice, where is that coming from? What is it tied to in my history? Has been kind of, I consider it fun to play in that space. I know a lot of people would not consider that a fun thing to dive into. Talk about weird hobbies is like, Michelle loves to like work on herself in usually post-sex situations where I'm like, let me tell you about this weird thing that's happening that I'm hearing right now in my head in this post, in the pillow talk moment. I'll get clarity around interesting stuff. And one of those was like tying some inner critic that came up for me after sex to like some history with like an old boyfriend kind of stuff. It's just, to me, I'm like, this is a good time. And I almost have to come with like a warning in my elevator, my safer sex elevator pitch would be like, and how do you feel about emotional processing? How do you feel about tears? Because if the sex is really good, you will find me putting all sorts of things together afterwards.
And do people enjoy it, or do you think they'll enjoy the process with you?
I don't get around enough these days to have a good number on that. My most recent casual partner, it was part of our negotiation, and he was like, yeah, I don't do pain. Because I said, hey, how do you feel about tears? And he was like, oh, I don't do pain. And I was like, oh, no, this is about, I'm going to process some stuff. I've got some stuff to work through. This is my intention of playing with you. And I just need you to buy in. I need to have buy-in on this. I'm not just going to like drop this on you. And he was like, oh, well, I've never experienced it, but I'm game. And it worked out really well. He surprisingly really held really great space. And I was able to like work, like have some real aha moments. It's the strangest thing. I joke, like I'll have like an orgasm and I'll be like, okay, let me tell you a story. I have this thing coming up for me right now. It's odd.
Okay.
And if you like tears, I'm a total turn on for that. But if you're not into women crying in bed, I'm probably not a good match for the person, because I figured out there's so much that I like. There's some weird, like, I think guys call it like post nut clarity, but like I have this like post orgasm space where it's almost like it's just like this interesting download of like awareness that I get in that space. It's wild. It's pretty cool, but it's wild.
Just unlocking a memory and you got to get it out right there.
Yeah, like I was really struggling with like again, that grieving process of, will I ever be the slut that I used to be, kind of thing. And aha moment that came up for me was I was like, let me tell you a story. Let me tell you about this one of these early clients I had in surrogate partner therapy, where I think I scared him away because we were doing like hand sex. That was the topic of our day that day. And I warned him that I might squirt, and I did, which means yay for everyone, I think, right? But I also work with a lot of really sexually like inexperienced people, and it was like a lot. I think it was a lot for him, and I think that's why I didn't come back. Like I literally got ghosted. And I remember that was when I was very early, and Brian was mentoring me, and he said, Michelle, like, we have to like show up we have to meet our clients where they're at. And that means sometimes we have to put kind of our authentic sexuality kind of on the back burner because they're not ready for that. It was a big lesson for me. But in that aha moment, I was like, oh, I realize I have had a really hard time changing hats between personal Michelle and professional Michelle when it comes to sex. And so that was my big download that day, which was good to put together.
In the ADHD space, people talk about the masks, and in the therapy space, we talk about like our identities and so forth. But like sometimes there's an element of like what's appropriate for taking care of others, or taking care of ourselves, or just being authentic. Like what is our mask within our family settings? Like who are we in all these kind of places? And and there's a way, I guess maybe in my own personal work of self, is that like how do I integrate those into myself, and also and be authentic, and like I guess be in charge of making that mask too, because it is in therapy I'm taking care of others, and I could interject all my little things, but no, it's about like just being it's about the other person's space right there. So it is about, you put it as hats, and that's important in like understanding those, and understanding when we're participating with them.
Yeah, there's some clients that it is so helpful that I have this kink background, and I can like come in and be like, oh yeah, do you know about this, or can I show you this, where other clients it's never going to be something that's even ever in their peripheral, and it wouldn't make any sense for me to show up and be like, but actually let me teach you about dominance and submission, or and it's all these different, all the different parts of us that could show up in a space that aren't needed in a space. And in that space, I learned a big lesson. But then in the follow-up space, just recently when I was having that download, that was also really important too, just to recognize that I was struggling in mask switching or code switching or whatever that would be considered. And I don't know that I have solved it, but it's just good for me to like connect the dots. It feels really good. So, 46 minutes. I think we hit our goal.
Okay.
I think we hit our goal. Thanks for playing with me, Mike.
No problem. I love these things.
Do you ever go by Mike or just Michael?
No, I'm mostly Mike.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how I'm at in the world. I love these things because, like, the honestly, I just I had a talk with my client. I was yesterday, and he was coming to this understanding of, are you a person who talks about yourself, or are you a person who needs a question mark to start sharing? Because
Mm,
there's an individual who might go to like a social setting and go like, oh, I had a really nice vacation, and like blah 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 blah, and then next and and the receiver of that might go, oh yeah, I just got back from Mexico, and like they might pick it up like, oh, the topic is Mexico, or sorry, the
hmm
topic is vacation,
hmm
and that is like a social, like, it's like a social kind of bouncing back and forth, and some people need to hear that, like, and what about you, kind of thing.
hmm
So these cards like offer these opportunities for these question marks to enter the space, when and a lot of people do need like a question mark in the room, as opposed to, oh, we're talking about kids right now, we're talking about sports right now, and just like bantering, because that's the subject in the room. Some people need to then be presented the question. It's like repeating
Yeah.
yourself.
And I don't really like the banter as much. Like,
Hmm.
I rather have it. I don't want to talk about the weather, although I live in San Diego. I mean, I guess it's pretty easy to fall into the weather conversation. But it's not the thing that leaves me going, ooh, that was such a juicy conversation. And a lot of times with these kind of prompts, it just allows you to break the monotony
Hmm.
of the usual social, like whatever that the usual social deck of conversation cards,
I do agree.
the ones you don't carry around with you, just the usual
Oh.
Rolodex of like, so how was your day? Do you really want to hear about it? Like those.
That's the problem is with me, is that I'm actually that person. Like, how was your day? Oh, how did that make you feel? Like, what's going on with that? I am deeply interested in people. So when you like highlight that, like there's like an etiquette of small talk. I often try to break out of that immediately because I want to have I want to feel like I've connected with somebody. Um,
Okay, that brings up something that happened in a session recently, and I'm really
mhm,
curious what your take is on it, because I had a client that was telling me things, right? Like, I was really like, when I said, how are you today? And they're like, actually, like, I don't know if I'm supposed to actually expound on this because it might be considered me dumping on you. And I was
mhm.
like, well, no, but I really want to know, right? So, like, there's a narrative that this is dumping. So when people ask the question of like, how are you? I've seen it looked at from so many different angles of like, am I the type of person that will just say I'm fine? Or am I the type of person that will tell the truth? But then are you going to judge me for dumping? Or is this a situation where you wish that I would have shared more deeply of how I really am?
Yeah, I've been noticing that sort of maybe in the last 2, 3 years, and maybe it's an effect of like social media, TikTok, or whatever it is. But there's this word of like trauma dumping when somebody asks a question, or like data dumping when you're asked about your things. Like, because people are starting to put labels on someone being interested, or being inquisitive. We don't necessarily. I guess there is no like sort of piece in that etiquette of small talk, of like, hey, are you ready to have a conversation? Are you open to, like, to be vulnerable? Or are you just like trying to pass, just be cordial, just wave hello at Target, and keep moving along, kind of thing. It's
Yeah.
it's there's no right answer, I think, is the big part of it, but it is, but to that person's like startup of like, I don't know if you want to hear this, like that's a consent question, and as how I'm hearing it, it's like, do you want to
Yeah.
hear that I'm not doing great, or
Yeah.
kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and in my office, of course I want to hear. Like,
Hmm.
that's the tone of how you're walking in for a session. It sets everything, right? Like but in the same or different context, being at an event where somebody just walks up to your group and joins your conversation, and the next thing you know, you're hearing about their bad boyfriend and their, horrible mother and their, you know what I mean? Like, that's like, actually nobody actually consented.
Nobody gives it to the.
That's right. I immediately go, oh, you're a client. Like, I have like kind of compartmentalized. I look at people and I'm like, okay, are you a peer? Like, when I think about like ethical non-monogamy, I always say like, are you in my playground? I don't know if that's like
That's
somebody
the first
else,
time I'm
but
hearing
like,
that.
okay, I always think like, are you in my playground? Because there's a certain like, I don't want to be in teacher mode all the time. Like, it's like, are we in a real like peer to peer, or is there some kind of advantage one way or the other?
Mm.
Like, am I I just use the word playground. But when I hear that kind of like dumping stuff where it's not in relation to like a question from someone who you're have a little bit of familiarity with, where they're like, how are you? Then I go, oh, you're a client. Like, we need to work on boundaries. We need to work on your ability to self-advocate. We need, like, you're giving me all the things in that dump that you've shared with me. I can check off boxes of all the things we should work on. Like, that's how my brain goes into, is like, oh yeah, we need to work on X, Y, and Z. If you contact me, it'll be more so because I think you should be a client, not because we're going to go out to coffee.
And that's, I guess there's another piece of this that I've always, I guess I don't think it's not necessarily unique, but I think I'm in the lower percentage of people. But when people talk about like, oh, I was just talking with this person, and they started talking about their, I don't know, their assaults, or they're like talking about their big subject that they just like haven't shared with anybody. I do feel like like, oh, thanks for sharing, like, oh, that's a secret. But at the same time, I'll talk to people and they'll be like, oh, and it drained me, and but I don't. Maybe it's therapy training, or maybe it's just the work, but like it doesn't go. I don't put their shoes on. I don't jump into their empathy and then feel what they felt, or it doesn't absorb into me. I always imagine that like I have this basket in front of me and it's all their like stuff is put, and then I just like throw it over my shoulder.
No, I think it's
like,
training.
Yeah.
I think it's training, and I think it's training and like boundary training, right? About how to not take on everybody's stuff. Because I remember when I first started professional cuddling, I had a session with like an oncologist or something, and he goes, how do you not take your work home with you? And I was like, I just don't. Like, it's part of, I think but I joke that the only thing I remember from my cuddlist training was that I was told, you've got to charge for this because the payment makes it very clear when the start time and the end time of the session is. And I feel like it's the same kind of thing. Even in that hour or 2 hours that I have with a person, when it's done, I just let it go out the door with the person. I don't find myself thinking about it outside of session very often. And I had a training one time, and the therapist that was running the training gave some advice that if you find yourself laying in bed thinking about a client at night, you're probably out of your scope of practice. And I was like, I don't know if that's always 100% true, but it certainly is something that I'm aware of now, so that if I do find myself thinking a lot about a client and worrying about how I'm like, what's the proper like route for this person, that I might just be out of my scope and it's just not something that I can handle, and I need to pass it on to somebody else.
Yeah, it's just really solid a piece of advice, because it is that if you're agonizing over an issue, there is there's kind of like, do you need to consult? Do you need to, is it out of your? Do you need to pass it along to somebody else? Do you need to seek more seek more education on it? Because if it's rolling around in you, there's that piece also on the other side of it that could be like, are you still like working on that? Do you not have that answer inside yourself? Are you still, I don't know, having trouble not taking your mom's crap into you, like whatever that is, like those kind of little chunks.
I don't work with couples very often. I think a lot of it's because I still have a lot of my own like stuff around couples that I don't want to project all over everyone, right? And I have my own baggage, and so I haven't worked through it enough to feel good about holding space for couples if they're coming in not super healthy. Like, that's just, I'm probably not the right place for them in that space anyways. They should be off to see mental health providers. But in those spaces where I have found myself working with couples, one thing that I noticed when I was thinking about them a lot was that I could set different boundaries. Like, it was an assumption that I would work with the couple, but what if I just worked with the wife? Right? Oh, well, that feels different. I feel way more settled. Okay. Well, so here's what I can be a yes to, and y'all can decide if that's something that you want to move forward with. But just knowing that unsettled feeling is like an antenna of like, there's something here that isn't quite clear yet, and you're not in your yes yet. Yeah. Michael, we could keep wandering.
Oh, easily. I could vibe with you forever here.
I know. We'll do it again. We can just schedule Zoom calls too if you want to just catch up. But I don't have to run into you at a conference like every 5 years.
Yeah, who knows?
Who knows? Are you going to St. Louis? Will you go to St. Louis for ASEC this year?
Oh no, I got more social obligations, like it's my wife's 40th and stuff like that. So I'm traveling for those kind of things.
Okay. I'm like, who am I going to see in St. Louis? Somebody come to St. Louis. But yeah, I'll be there. Okay. Well, Michael, do you want to share any of your like how people could find you if they're like,
Oh,
hey,
if you
Michael
want to
seems
find me,
super cool. I
oh
should try
please.
maybe to work with him or something. I don't know.
Maybe someone would find me super cool. I am very full.
Oh,
I have so many clients. Yeah, I
congratulations.
have a little bit of a wait list, but I can only work with people in California. If someone like
Mhm.
absolutely feels like they can see me, I have some out of pocket spots. They have to be in California, and you can find me at mikemft.com, and it'll bounce you to my website. So that's a spot where you
That
can
was a
fill
good
that.
catch. That website domain.
My actual website is Michael Guichet Sex Therapy, but a friend forever ago taught me a trick of just like get a forwarding HTML, and so just you do a little something, just a little something, just a little sweet something small, and then it'll
Uh-huh.
bounce to the bigger thing.
I collect domains. I totally know about the forward.
Oh,
Yeah.
gotcha. Oh, I own Mike the Psych. It's,
Oh,
I'm really proud of that domain. Although it's still like more people associate it with either a psychologist, a PhD, or a medium.
well, I mean, you could pick up a side gig.
Oh my God, yeah, it's
You
got to
could.
do some reading people's futures.
Yeah. I mean, you can just make it up for fun. Do it for Halloween or something. You
Oh
could just
yeah,
make that your costume or something. I don't know. You've got good costume people in your life.
I
I
do.
know some of your people. Yeah. Okay. Well, it was a pleasure. We'll talk again soon.
See you around.
See you. Thank you for joining us. If you'd like to comment, pose a question, or learn more about the guests often featured on the show, visit us at intimacylabpodcast.com. Please also take a moment to review us on your favorite podcast app. It's one of the best ways to show your support. As for me, you can find out more about my work at meetmichellerenee.com, as well as on most social medias at meetmichellerenee. Let's connect again soon.